I was 23 years old when the entire town called me a liar, a slut, a shameless woman, when they pointed at me on the street and whispered, when mothers forbade their children from talking to me, when even my own family doubted me, all because I showed up pregnant, 6 months pregnant, and swore that I had never been with a man, that I had never dated, that I was a virgin. No one believed me. How could they believe? Women don't get pregnant alone. Women don't get pregnant by the Holy Spirit. So I must have been lying. I must have done something in secret. I must have had a secret affair, a forbidden lover, something dirty that I was trying to hide, but I wasn't lying. And today, 41 years later, I'm going to tell the truth. The truth that no one wanted to hear back then. The truth that almost cost me everything. My reputation, my family, my life. My name is Rose. I'm 64 years old. And this is the strangest, most painful, and most unbelievable story you'll hear today. But it's true. Every word, you can believe it. It all started in 1983. I lived in a small town in rural Pennsylvania, one of those really small ones, where everyone knows everyone since birth, where secrets don't exist because someone is always watching, always knowing, always talking. I was the oldest daughter of 5 siblings. My father was a construction worker, my mother a seamstress. We didn't have much, but we had enough. Food on the table, roof over our heads, clean clothes, and most importantly, we had a name, a clean name, a reputation. My mother always said that for a poor family, the only wealth we had was honor, and that I, being the oldest daughter, had to set an example for the younger ones. I had to be a proper girl, a respectable girl, a girl that the neighbors could point to and say, "Look at Rose, what a well-raised girl." And I swear to God I was. I didn't go out alone, didn't talk to boys, didn't go to parties without my mother. I worked, helped at home, went to church every Sunday. I was shy, quiet, too straight-laced. Even my friends kept saying I was uptight, that I needed to live more. But I was afraid. Afraid of disappointing my family, afraid of tarnishing our name. I worked as a housekeeper for Mrs. Thompson, the wife of the gas station owner. It was a big, beautiful house. I cleaned, cooked, ironed clothes, earned well by the standards of the time. And Mrs. Thompson was a good employer, treated me with respect, gave me good food, her used clothes that were still new, even encouraged me to study at night, which was rare. I woke up at 5 in the morning, went to her house at 6, worked until 4 in the afternoon, went back home, helped my mother with my siblings, had dinner, studied a little, and slept. That was my routine every single day, without variation, without novelty. There was no room for a boyfriend in that routine, no time, no interest. Also, to be honest, I saw my friends suffering over men, crying over men, doing crazy things for men. And I thought, I don't want that for myself, not now, maybe one day, when I was older, more established, but not now. So when it started, I didn't even notice. I didn't notice that something was wrong, because how would I notice? I didn't even know how it was supposed to be. No one had explained to me. My mother didn't talk about these things. They didn't teach it in school. We grew up in ignorance, discovering things gradually, with shame, without guidance. It started with the tiredness, a terrible tiredness that wouldn't go away even with sleep. I thought it was overwork. Then came the dizziness, the nausea. I vomited in the morning, almost every day. I thought it was some virus, something I had eaten that didn't sit well. My belly started growing, but it grew slowly, you know. And I was very thin, very thin. So when my belly grew a little, I thought it was because I was eating better at Mrs. Thompson's house, that I was finally gaining weight, getting a woman's body. I kept menstruating. This is important. I kept menstruating normally, every month. So how was I supposed to think I was pregnant? How was I even supposed to consider that possibility if I had never been with a man and was still menstruating? March, April, May, June passed, and there I was working, living my life without suspecting anything. It was in July that my mother noticed. We were in the backyard hanging clothes on the line. I bent down to pick up a basin, and when I got up, my blouse lifted with me. My mother saw my belly, a belly that was already quite prominent. She turned white, white as paper, dropped the clothes she was holding on the ground, and came to me with that look that every daughter recognizes: fear, anger, disappointment, all at once. "Rose, are you pregnant?" It wasn't a question, it was a statement. And I laughed. Laughed because I thought it was absurd. Pregnant. "No, I'm not, Mom." "How would I be pregnant?" She pointed at my belly. "That's not fat, Rose. That's a pregnant belly. I've had 5 children. I know what I'm seeing." My world collapsed right there in that exact moment. Because if my mother was saying that, if my mother who had had 5 children was seeing that, then maybe it was true. Maybe I was really pregnant. But how? How was this possible? My mother dragged me inside the house, locked the door, and started the interrogation. Who was the father? When had it happened? Why had I hidden it? Why had I lied? And I swore crying on my knees with my hand on the Bible. Swore that there was no one, that I had never been with any man, that I didn't know how it had happened. She didn't believe me. Of course she didn't believe me. Who would believe? "You think I'm an idiot, Rose? You think I was born yesterday? Tell me who it is. Is it some boy from school? Is it one of Mrs. Thompson's clients? Who is it?" "No one, Mom. I swear to God. I swear on my siblings' lives. I never been with anyone." She slapped me hard, so hard I fell to the ground. And she had never hit me before. Never. But there, in that moment, she was so beside herself, so desperate, that she hit me. "Liar, slut. You've shamed this family. You've destroyed our name." My father came home from work, and my mother told him. He was silent, very silent. That heavy silence, worse than screaming. He looked at me with such sadness, so deep, that I wanted to die right there. My siblings found out. The whole neighborhood found out. In 2 days, the entire town was talking. Rose, that little saint, that one who played so proper, was pregnant and had the nerve to say she didn't know whose it was, that she had never dated. The versions started emerging. Everyone made up a different story. That I had an affair with a married man and was protecting him. That I had been abused and was too ashamed to tell. That I had sex drunk at a party and didn't remember. That I was crazy. That I was making it all up for attention. Mrs. Thompson fired me. Said she couldn't have a pregnant single girl working in her house, that it would give a bad impression, that the neighbors would talk. I lost my job, lost my friendships, lost everything, and still didn't understand, still didn't know how that had happened to me. It was my Aunt Nora, my mother's sister, who insisted I go to the doctor. A real doctor, not the town's midwife, a doctor in the city. She said something was wrong, that it wasn't normal for a girl pregnant for months not to know how she got pregnant. My mother didn't want to spend the money, said she wasn't going to throw money away on a doctor for me to keep lying. But my aunt insisted, and she paid for the appointment and the bus fare. It was the first time I left that town. The first time I was going to a private doctor, a real office. I was so scared my legs were shaking. The office was in a tall building downtown, everything very clean, smelling of disinfectant. The receptionist looked me up and down when I said I was pregnant. That look of judgment I was already used to receiving. Dr. Harrison was a man of about 50 years old, gray hair, glasses, impeccable white coat. He greeted me politely, but I could see he was also judging me. Another girl who had made a mistake and was now paying the price. He asked me to lie on the exam table, did the examination, measured my belly, listened to the heartbeat, and confirmed, "You're approximately 6 months pregnant. 6 months, half a year, and I didn't even know." He asked the same thing everyone asked. Who's the father? When was the last relation? Do you use any contraceptive method? And I gave the same answer I gave everyone. I've never had relations, never with anyone. He took off his glasses, looked at me with that expression doctors make when they think the patient is lying or crazy. Miss, look, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I've seen a lot of things, but women don't get pregnant alone. If you're pregnant, it's because there was sexual intercourse. It may have been a long time ago, you may not remember well. It may have been something traumatic that you blocked, but it happened. I need you to be honest with me so I can help you. I was crying so much I could barely speak. Doctor, I know you don't believe me. No one believes me, but I'm telling the truth. I've never been with any man. I don't even really know how it is. My mother never explained these things to me. They didn't teach it in school. I only know that I didn't do anything that could make me pregnant. He sighed, put his glasses back on, and said something that changed everything. All right, I'm going to do an exam. An exam that will confirm whether you really never had relations or not. It's called a hymen examination. If you're really a virgin, it will show in the exam. Do you agree to do it? I agreed right away. Finally, someone was going to prove I was telling the truth. Finally, they would have to believe me. The exam was uncomfortable, embarrassing, but I endured it because I knew it would save me, save my reputation, show my family, show the entire town that I wasn't a liar. After the exam, he asked me to get dressed and sit down. He spent time looking at the results, too long a time, and when he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, more respectful. Rose, I need to apologize to you. You were telling the truth. The exam shows that your hymen is intact. You're a virgin. I started crying again, but this time it was relief. Someone finally believed me. Finally, there was proof. But then came the question I should have asked before. But doctor, if I'm a virgin, how am I pregnant? He was silent again, looking at the papers, looking at me, and I saw something on his face. Confusion. He didn't know either. This is extremely rare, extremely. But there have been documented cases in medicine, cases of pregnancy without penetration, cases where there was intimate contact sufficient for fluid transfer, but there was no complete penetration. It's possible. Difficult, but possible. I didn't understand intimate contact, fluids, what he was talking about. Rose, I need you to think carefully. Have you ever been alone with any boy? Even if nothing major happened. But was there any physical contact, any touch, anything? I thought hard, and suddenly a memory came. A memory I had forgotten, that I had pushed to the back of my mind because it had been so confusing, so strange, that I didn't even know how to process it properly. It was in February 1983, 6 months before my mother discovered the pregnancy. It made sense with the timing. Mrs. Thompson had traveled for a week, went to visit her daughter in Boston, and asked me to sleep at her house while she was away to take care of the house, the dogs, the plants. I slept there 4 nights alone. It was the first time in my life I slept alone in a house, away from my parents, away from my siblings. And I was loving the freedom, the silence, the space just for me. On the 3rd night, I was already sleeping when I heard a noise, a strange noise coming from the kitchen. I thought it was one of the dogs. Got up to see. It wasn't a dog. It was someone. A person. A figure. I screamed, wanted to run, but the person came running too, grabbed me, covered my mouth. I thought I was going to die, thought it was a burglar, that they were going to kill me. My heart was racing. I was shaking all over. But then the person turned on a flashlight on their own face, and I recognized them. It was David, Mrs. Thompson's middle son, the one who lived in New York, the one who only showed up once in a while. He let go of my mouth, apologized, said he didn't know there was anyone in the house, that he had come to get some of his things and had decided to sleep there since it was late. I was still shaking. He saw it, apologized again, told me to calm down, offered water. We sat in the kitchen, talked a little. He was polite, handsome, about 25 years old, worked at something in New York. The conversation got long. He asked me several questions about myself, about my life. No one had ever shown so much interest in me like that. And I was liking it, liking the attention, the company. He said I was pretty, that it was a shame I was so shy, that I should smile more. And I smiled, turned red, but smiled. Then he got closer, put his hand on my face, and kissed me. It was my first kiss, the first kiss of my life, and I didn't know what to do. I was paralyzed, but I also didn't hate it. It was strange, wet, but not bad. He kept kissing me. His hands went to my waist, then to my back. I was still paralyzed, half of me wanting to stop, half of me curious to know what came next. He pulled me to the living room couch. We lay there. He on top kept kissing me. His hands went to places no one had ever touched. And I got scared, very scared. I said no, that I didn't want to, that I couldn't. He said it was okay, that we weren't going to do anything major. Just a little bit. His clothes were different. I felt something pressing. And then he made a movement, and I felt pain, a quick pain but sharp. I screamed, pushed him. He stopped immediately, got off me. Said sorry, that he didn't want to hurt me, that it was his fault, that he lost control. I got up, ran to the bedroom, locked the door, stayed there until dawn, crying, confused, ashamed, scared. In the morning, when I came out of the room, he was already gone. Left a note saying sorry again, saying not to tell his mother anything, that it had been a misunderstanding, that nothing major had happened. And I didn't tell anyone because I was ashamed, because I thought it had been my fault for having talked to him, for not having screamed louder, for not having stopped it. I tried to forget, pushed it to the back of my mind, as if it hadn't happened, as if it were a bad dream. But it had happened, and it had consequences. When I finished telling this to the doctor, he was silent, a long silence. Then he said in a very serious voice, "Rose, what happened to you has a name. You were assaulted. This boy assaulted you. And from your descriptions, it seems there was partial penetration, enough to partially rupture the hymen and allow sperm transfer. That's why you got pregnant. But since there was no complete penetration, your hymen is still technically intact. Assaulted. That word echoed in my head. Assaulted. I had been assaulted. It hadn't been my fault. It hadn't been because I wanted it. I had been forced, manipulated. I left that office different, with the medical report in hand. A report that proved I was a virgin, that proved I had told the truth, but also with a new truth, heavy, that I could barely process. I had been assaulted. I was going to have a child from an assault, a child I hadn't asked for, hadn't planned, hadn't chosen. My Aunt Nora was waiting for me in the reception. When she saw my face, she knew something serious had happened. We went to a diner nearby and I told everything. Showed the report, told about David, about that night. She cried with me, hugged me tight, and said we were going to solve this, that we were going to get justice, that that monster was going to pay for what he did. But when we got back to town, told my mother, my father, the reaction wasn't what I expected. My father wanted to kill David. Literally kill him, grabbed the shotgun he kept for hunting and was going to go after him. My mother and my aunt had to hold him, yell that it would only make things worse, that he would go to jail, that it wouldn't solve anything. My mother read the report, reread it, and even with the proof there, even with the doctor confirming, she still had doubt in her eyes, as if that was too impossible to be true. My aunt said we had to go to the police, file a report, sue David. But my father said no, that it would be worse, that the whole town would find out the details, that they would talk even more about me, that they would say I provoked it, that I wanted it. And he was right, because when the story leaked, when some people found out about the medical report and about David, the reaction wasn't compassion, it was more judgment. They said I was making it up, that I had arranged for the doctor to make a false report, that I was blaming an innocent man because I was ashamed to admit I had sex of my own free will. They said I had provoked it, that I had stayed alone with him in the house on purpose, that I had come on to him, that if I really didn't want it, I would have screamed louder, would have run away. Mrs. Thompson found out, and instead of supporting me, instead of believing me, she called me a liar. Said her son would never do such a thing, that I was defaming her family, that she was going to sue me for slander. David didn't even show up in town, stayed hidden in New York, sent a lawyer. The lawyer said it was all lies, that David wasn't even in town at that time, that he had proof, witnesses. It was lie against lie, my word against his. And guess who everyone believed? The man from a good family, not the poor housekeeper who showed up pregnant. My father wanted to go after him anyway, but my mother begged him not to do anything, said we were already destroyed enough, that if he went to jail, we would have nothing, no support, no name, nothing. So we swallowed it, swallowed the anger, the injustice, the pain, and lived with it. I continued pregnant, belly growing, baby moving, and there I was, not knowing what to feel. There were days I hated that child. Hated because she was the product of what had happened, product of something horrible I wanted to forget. But there were days I put my hand on my belly and felt that life in there and thought, it's not her fault. She didn't ask to be conceived like this. She's innocent. The church I had attended my whole life expelled me. The pastor said I was a bad influence for the other girls, that I couldn't go to Mass anymore, couldn't take communion until I got married or proved I was repentant of my sins. My younger siblings suffered at school. Classmates made fun of them, said their sister was this, was that. My middle brother came home one day with a black eye, had fought with the boy who called me a slut. My mother cried every day, cried because her dream of seeing me marry in white with veil and wreath had died. Cried because the family's reputation was destroyed. Cried because she didn't know how we were going to raise that child. I thought about running away, thought about leaving far away, to a place where no one knew me, where I could start over. But I had no money, nowhere to go, no one. My Aunt Nora was the only one who stayed by my side the whole time. She paid for the prenatal appointments, bought baby clothes, set up the crib at her house, said that when the baby was born, he would stay with her during the day while I looked for work, because no one else would give me a job. No one wanted to hire the girl who got pregnant single, the problematic girl, the girl who would be trouble. September arrived, the month of delivery. I was 9 months along, heavy, tired, scared of what was ahead. At dawn on September 15th, contractions began. My mother took me to the hospital, a public hospital, small, precarious, but it was what we had. The delivery was difficult, long, painful. I screamed so much I got hoarse. But finally, after 14 hours, the baby was born. It was a boy, tiny, skinny, but perfect, with all the little fingers, all the little toes, crying strong, healthy. The nurse brought him to me, put him in my arms, and when I looked at that little face, at those closed little eyes, something inside me broke and rebuilt itself at the same time. I loved him instantly, instantaneously. All the doubts, all the fears, all the hatred I thought I felt disappeared, and only love remained, a giant, overwhelming love that I didn't even know I was capable of feeling. He was mine. It didn't matter how he had been conceived, didn't matter who the father was. He was my son, and I was going to protect him, love him, give him everything I could. I named him Luke. Luke because it means light. And he was that for me in that moment, a light in the middle of so much darkness. But reality was still hard. I came home with a baby in my arms and no prospects, no work, no money, no future. My mother helped as she could, but she had 4 other children to take care of. My father worked all day and earned little. We lived in hardship. Luke was 2 months old when I got a job at a textile factory in the neighboring town. It was far. I woke up at 4 in the morning, took the bus, worked 8 hours standing, came back at night, exhausted, barely able to stand. My aunt took care of Luke during the day, and I thanked God for her every single day, because without her, I don't know what I would have done. The months passed, Luke growing, starting to sit, crawl, take his first steps. And every time I saw him, every time he smiled at me, I thought, it was worth it. All the suffering, all the pain was worth it. But the town didn't forget. People didn't forgive. I continued being pointed at, continued being judged. And Luke, too. Poor thing. He wasn't to blame for anything, but already carried the weight of judgment from the cradle. There was a time I was at the grocery store with him in my arms. He was about 6 months old, was smiling at everyone, happy, beautiful. And a lady passed by me and said loudly for everyone to hear, "Poor child, born of sin, will carry that curse his whole life." I felt such anger that I wanted to scream, wanted to curse, but I just hugged my son tighter and left there crying, but in silence. Luke was a year and a half old when I met Joseph. It was 1985. I was in line at the bank with Luke in my arms, waiting to receive my salary. Luke was crying from hunger, from sleepiness, making that scene that small children make. People in line looked at me with disapproval. A lady even grumbled something about single mothers not knowing how to raise children properly. I was trying to calm Luke, sweating, embarrassed, wanting to disappear. That's when a man approached, dark-haired, tall, with a kind smile. He started making faces at Luke. And Luke, who was screaming, stopped crying immediately, started laughing. That nice child's laugh. "Sorry to intrude," the man said, "but I have nephews. I know how it is. Children get bored in line." I thanked him kind of awkwardly, but relieved. He kept entertaining Luke until my turn came. And when I left the bank, he was out there waiting. "Look, I know this will seem strange, but I saw you in there with your son." And I was thinking, would you like to have coffee? Just coffee to talk, no commitment? I should have said no, should have left. But there was something about him, something sincere. And it had been so long since someone had been kind to me without judging me that I accepted. We went to a bakery nearby. Luke fell asleep in my lap, and Joseph and I talked. He told me he was a mechanic, that he was 28 years old, that he was from another town but had come to work here, that he lived alone in a rented room. And I told my story, not everything, not right away, but I told him I was a single mother, that things were difficult, that I worked a lot and earned little. He listened to me without judging, without asking indiscreet questions. And when we said goodbye, he asked to see me again. And I said yes. We started meeting once a week. On Sundays, he would come to my aunt's house, where I spent the afternoons with Luke, brought toys for Luke, played with him, and talked to me. It was gradual. Slowly, without hurry, he was gaining my trust, and I was opening up, telling more about what had happened, about David, about how I had gotten pregnant. I thought that when he knew, he would leave, that he would think I was too problematic, too complicated. But he didn't leave. He stayed and said something I'll never forget. "Rose, what happened to you doesn't define who you are. You're a strong, courageous woman and an incredible mother. And I would like to be part of your life if you let me." 8 months later, we got married. It was a small courthouse wedding, witnesses, my Aunt Nora and a friend of his. My mother went, my father too, but still a bit wary, still doubting if Joseph was serious or if he would disappear when life got difficult. But Joseph didn't disappear. He registered Luke as his son, gave him his last name, treated him as if he were his own blood. We rented a tiny little house, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom, but it was ours. And for the first time since Luke was born, I felt safe, protected, loved. The town kept talking. They said Joseph was stupid for marrying me, that he had accepted another man's child, that I had gotten lucky, but we didn't care. We lived our life, building our home, our family. Joseph got a job at a better garage. I got a position at a store downtown. Things were getting better. We didn't get rich. We never did. But we had enough. Had food on the table, clean clothes, and most importantly, we had peace. Luke grew up calling Joseph Dad because that's what Joseph was, in everything except blood. Joseph was the one who taught him to ride a bike, who took him on the first day of school, who stayed up in the middle of the night when he was sick, who went to all parent meetings, a real father. When Luke was 5 years old, I got pregnant again, this time for real, really for real, with my husband. In a loving relationship, chosen, wanted. A girl was born, Emma, blonde, full of curls, beautiful. And when I held her for the first time, I remembered when I held Luke and realized the love was the same. There was no difference. I loved them both the same way, with the same intensity. Luke adored his little sister, was jealous sometimes, as every child is, but was also protective, careful, an incredible brother. 2 years later came Michael, another boy, looked like Joseph. And our family was complete. 3 children, a small house but full of love, a life that wasn't perfect, but was ours. Luke grew up without knowing the truth about his conception. We thought it was better that way. Why burden him with that weight? Why tell such a painful story? He was happy. Had a father who loved him, had siblings, had a family, and that's what mattered. But when he was 14 years old, the truth came out. And it wasn't the way we would have liked. It was at school. He fought with a classmate, and the classmate angrily yelled in front of everyone, "Your dad isn't even your real dad. Your mom is a slut who got pregnant single and found a sucker to marry her." Luke came home destroyed, crying, screaming, asking if it was true, if Joseph wasn't his father, if I had lied to him his whole life. Joseph and I sat with him and told him everything about what had happened to me, about how I had gotten pregnant, about how Joseph had chosen me, had chosen him, not out of obligation, but out of love. Luke was silent for a long time, and then he looked at Joseph and asked, "Do you really love me knowing I'm not your blood son?" Joseph hugged him tight and said with a choked voice, "Luke, you are my son. A son isn't who makes them. It's who raises them, who loves them, who is present. And I'm here. I've always been here, and I always will be." Luke cried. Joseph cried. I cried. We cried together, but in that way that feels good, that cleanses, that heals. After that day, Luke was different, more mature, more aware, and more grateful. He started valuing Joseph even more, saying thank you for small things, hugging more, saying I love you more often. And he looked at me differently too, with more respect, with more admiration, as if he had finally understood how much I had fought, how much I had suffered, and how much I loved him. Life went on. Luke finished high school, went to work with Joseph at the garage, learned the trade, became an excellent mechanic. Emma became a teacher. Michael went to study in another city. And I kept working, kept being a mother, wife, kept living. The people in town gradually forgot. That old story about Rose who got pregnant, single lost strength. Other gossip emerged, other people became targets, and I finally managed to breathe without feeling the weight of judgment. But there was one thing that was never resolved, one thing that remained pending all these years. David, the man who had assaulted me, Luke's biological father. He never paid for what he did, never took responsibility, never apologized, simply went on with his life as if nothing had happened. It was in 2008, 25 years after that horrible night. Luke was already 25 years old, was a grown man, worked, was engaged, was going to get married in 3 months. I was at the farmer's market buying vegetables when I saw him, David. After all those years, he was different. Older, of course, protruding belly, thinning hair. But I recognized him immediately, that face, those eyes. Everything came back at once. That night, that fear, that pain. My heart raced. My hands started shaking. I wanted to run, wanted to get out of there, but my feet didn't obey. I was paralyzed, staring at him. He saw me. Our eyes met, and I saw recognition on his face. He knew who I was, and for a fraction of a second, I saw something more. Guilt, shame, I don't know. But he quickly looked away and walked away hurriedly. I stood there shaking. The vendor asked if I was okay, said I looked pale. I paid for things kind of on autopilot and left. Got home still shaking. Joseph saw it, asked what had happened, and I told him. Told him I had seen him, David, after all these years. Joseph was furious, wanted to go after him, wanted to do something. But I asked him not to do anything, to let it be. Said it wasn't worth it, that it had been so long ago, that we had built a good life, that we weren't going to let that man ruin it again. But it wasn't that simple, because that night I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing in bed, remembering everything, how he had hurt me, how no one had believed me, how he had gotten away with it, living his life while I had carried the weight alone. In the following days, I started investigating discreetly, asked some people, and found out he had come back to town 2 years ago, that his mother, Mrs. Thompson, had gotten sick, and he had come to take care of her. Stayed after she died, set up a business, a construction supply store. And I found out more. Found out he was married, had 3 daughters, that he was seen as a good man in town, that he went to church, that he was respected. That revolted me deeply. How could he be living this life, this normal, respectable life, after what he had done? I started thinking about confronting him, going up to him and telling him to his face everything I had kept for 25 years. But Joseph made me promise I wouldn't do anything, wouldn't mess with it. But fate had other plans. Because one day, Luke came home with news. "Mom, Dad, I want to introduce you to the owner of the store where I bought material to renovate the house. He gave me an excellent price and said he wants to meet you, make an even better quote for the wedding." My blood froze because I knew before Luke even said the name. It was him, it was David. I tried to make excuses, said I was busy, that it wasn't necessary, but Luke insisted. Said the man had been so helpful, so attentive, that he had given a huge discount, that he wanted to return the kindness. How was I going to explain to my son that that kind, helpful man was the man who had assaulted me, who was his biological father? I couldn't. So I agreed to go with my heart in my hand, afraid of what would happen. We set it for a Saturday at his store. Luke went ahead, Joseph and I went after. When we entered the store, there he was, David, smiling, extending his hand to shake. And then he saw me, and the smile died on his face. He turned pale. The hand that was extended fell. Luke noticed. "Mom, do you know Mr. Peterson?" Peterson? He had changed his name, no longer used David, used his full name. David Peterson, more formal, more respectable. I didn't answer. I stood staring at him, waiting to see what he would do, if he would pretend he didn't know me, if he would lie again. Joseph stepped forward, extended his hand firmly. "Peterson, right?" "Pleasure. I'm Joseph, Rose's husband and Luke's father." He emphasized the word father, and it was intentional. I knew it. David knew it too. The atmosphere got strange, tense. Luke was confused, sensing something was wrong but not knowing what. David tried to disguise it, tried to talk normally, show materials, make a quote, but he was sweating, nervous, his hands were shaking. At one point, Luke went to the warehouse in the back to see the tiles, and it was just the 3 of us there, me, Joseph, and David. Joseph looked at him and said quietly but firmly, "You know who she is, right? And you know who Luke is?" It wasn't a question, it was a statement. David was mute, looking at the floor. I finally spoke after 25 years of silence. I finally spoke. "You destroyed my life. You assaulted me, got me pregnant, and ran away. Let me carry the guilt alone. Let the entire town call me a liar, a slut, and you didn't even care." His voice came out weak. "Rose, I was young. I didn't know you had, that you had gotten pregnant. I swear, if I had known..." "You knew. Your mother told you. Everyone in town found out, and you sent a lawyer to say I was lying, that you weren't even in town. My mother sent him. It wasn't me. She said it would ruin everything, that I would lose my job, my life in New York. She forced me." Joseph took a threatening step forward. Forced. No one forced you to assault her. No one forced you to be a coward. You made choices and ran from the consequences. David was crying now, really crying, tears running down his face. I know I was a coward, that I did something horrible, and I've carried this with me all these years. Every night I think about it. Every night I regret it. Regret doesn't change what happened, I said. It doesn't give back the years I lost, the dignity they took from me, the pain I felt. He kept crying, on his knees now, literally on his knees on the store floor. Forgive me, please. I know I don't deserve it. I know nothing I say will change what I did, but forgive me. I beg you. Luke came back at that moment, saw David on his knees crying, Joseph and me standing there, and understood, even without knowing the details, he understood. Mom, this is the man. This is my biological father. I didn't need to answer. My silence said everything. Luke looked at David, and his expression was one of disgust, of repulsion. Get up from there. You don't even deserve to be on your knees. The one who has to ask for forgiveness on their knees is you. To her, for her whole life. David got up, tried to approach Luke, tried to say something. Luke backed away. Don't touch me. I have a father. I have a real father who raised me, who loved me, who was present. You're nothing to me. Nothing. We left that store and never went back, never spoke to David again. And to this day, Luke refuses to call him anything besides that man. Some people in town found out about the confrontation. The story leaked somehow, and this time the reaction was different because 25 years had passed. People had seen me build a life, seen me be a good mother, a good wife, a hard-working, honest woman. And David? David started being avoided. People stopped buying at his store, started talking, judging, and he felt a little bit of what I had felt all those years ago. I won't lie and say that gave me satisfaction. It didn't, because revenge doesn't heal, doesn't erase the pain, but it brought something. It brought validation, confirmation that I had told the truth, that I wasn't the villain of that story. After that confrontation at the store, I thought I would feel peace. Thought that finally, having said everything to his face, having seen him on his knees asking for forgiveness, would erase the anger I had carried for 25 years. But it didn't erase it. If anything, it got worse, because now I had seen him, had heard him, had seen his tears, and a part of me, a small part but present, felt sorry. Felt sorry for a man who clearly carried guilt, who had destroyed his own life too, in a way. And I hated feeling sorry for him. Hated it because he didn't deserve it. He had made a choice that night, and then made another choice when he decided to deny everything, run away, leave me alone with the consequences. Joseph saw my internal struggle, saw that it was consuming me again, that I was going back to that dark place where I had lived so many years ago. And he didn't want that for me, didn't want that man to have power over me again. So he suggested something. Suggested we look for a psychologist, someone who could help me process all that old pain I had buried but never really healed. I resisted at first. In my time, in my generation, we didn't talk about therapy. We didn't go to a psychologist. We swallowed it, kept it, and moved on. But Joseph insisted, and Luke did too, and I finally accepted. The psychologist was called Dr. Christine, a woman in her 40s, kind but direct. She didn't feel sorry for me, didn't coddle me. She got straight to the point, asked the difficult questions, the questions that hurt. In the third session, she asked something no one had ever asked. Rose, have you ever thought about forgiving? I got angry right away. Forgive? Forgive what? The assault? The abandonment? The lie? Why should I forgive? She waited for me to finish my outburst and then said calmly, Forgiving isn't saying what he did was right. It's not forgetting. It's not letting him off the hook. Forgiving is freeing yourself. It's letting go of the anger that's poisoning you inside. But I have a right to be angry. I have a right to hate him. Yes, you do. You have every right. But tell me something. Has this anger brought you peace? Has it brought you happiness or just more pain? I couldn't answer, because the truth was obvious. The anger had only hurt me, had stolen my peace, had stolen my joy. While David lived his life, I suffered because of him. Even 25 years later, Dr. Christine gave me an exercise, asked me to write a letter to David, but a letter I would never send, a letter where I put everything, all the anger, all the pain, everything I had never said, but also at the end that I tried to find some form of forgiveness, even if just for myself. It took me 3 weeks to write that letter. 3 weeks crying over the paper, writing, tearing it up, starting over. But I finally finished it. And when I finished, when I wrote those last words saying I forgave, not for him, but for me, something inside me loosened, like a knot you carry for years and suddenly comes undone. I didn't send the letter. I burned it, watched it turn to ashes, and along with those ashes, I released some of the weight I carried. Forgiving David didn't mean saying everything was okay, didn't mean forgetting. It just meant I wasn't going to let what he did keep hurting me, that I was going to live my life without that heavy anger pulling me down. Luke saw the change in me. He had the anger I had released. He hated David with an intensity that sometimes scared me because it was the hatred of a son protecting his mother, the hatred of someone who sees the person they love suffer and can't do anything. One day I sat with him and told him about the therapy, about the letter, about forgiveness. And he was outraged. How can you forgive him, Mom? After everything he did, after everything you suffered. I held his hand, looked into his eyes. Luke, I didn't forgive because he deserves it. I forgave because I deserve it. I deserve to live without this weight, without this anger. And you deserve it too. You weren't born to carry hate. You were born to be happy. He cried. That cry of someone who's carrying something too heavy and finally has permission to let it go. And gradually, he was also letting go. Not overnight. It was a process, but he did. Meanwhile, David continued in town, but it was as if he were invisible. People didn't talk to him, didn't buy from him. He had become a pariah, what I had been 25 years ago. There was a day my Aunt Nora told me she had seen him at church alone, in the back, praying, crying. She said it was pitiful. And you know what? I felt sorry too. Not the kind of pity that makes you want to help, but the pity you feel for someone who destroyed their own life, who lost everything because of their own choices. Because I found out, through conversations here and there, that his life hadn't been easy either. That his marriage had ended when his wife found out what he had done. That his daughters didn't talk to him anymore. That he had lost everything. House, family, respect. That didn't erase what he had done to me, didn't justify it, but made me see that the evil we do comes back. Always comes back. Maybe not immediately. Maybe it takes 25 years, but it comes back. It was in 2015, 7 years after that confrontation, that I received a letter from him, from David. I almost didn't open it, almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Curiosity, need for closure, I don't know. The letter was long, handwritten, shaky, irregular handwriting. He told about his life, about how he had lost everything, about how he was sick now, cancer, advanced stage, about how he was going to die soon, and asked once more for forgiveness. But this time, it was different. It wasn't the desperate plea of someone who got caught and wants to get rid of guilt. It was the sincere plea of someone who knows they're going to die and wants to leave in peace. He said he understood if I didn't want to respond, that he understood if I still hated him, that he just wanted me to know he regretted it, that if he could go back, he would do everything differently, that I didn't deserve what had happened, that Luke didn't deserve to be born that way, that he had been a monster, but that he was trying, in the last moments of his life, to be a little better. I showed the letter to Joseph, to Luke, and asked what they thought I should do. Joseph said it was my decision, that he would support me in whatever I chose. Luke said I didn't owe that man anything, that he didn't deserve even a response. But I didn't do it for him, I did it for me. I wrote a letter back, short, simple. Said I had forgiven, not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Said I hoped he found peace too, and that he used the days he had left to make peace with his daughters, to try to fix what could still be fixed. I didn't wish good luck. Didn't say everything was okay because it wasn't, but I gave him what he asked for. Forgiveness. 3 months later, my aunt called me. David had died alone in the hospital. None of his daughters had gone to see him. No one went to the funeral except the cemetery staff. I didn't go, wasn't going to, but I sent flowers, white flowers, with a card that said only, "Rest in peace." Luke asked me why I had sent flowers, why I had given him that dignity. And I answered, because I'm better than anger, because I choose to be better than the worst moment of my life, because he may have taken a lot from me, but he won't take my humanity. Today, in 2024, I'm 64 years old. Luke is 41, married, has 2 children, works at his own mechanic shop, became a good man, a present father, a dedicated husband, everything his biological father never was. Emma is 36, is a teacher, as she always wanted, also married, has a beautiful daughter, and every time I see her with her daughter, I remember myself with her, the instant love, the fierce protection. Michael is 34, is an engineer, lives in another city, but comes to visit us every month, brings his girlfriend, talks about marriage, and I'm happy to see my children happy, fulfilled, living the lives they chose. Joseph is 73 years old now, retired. Spends his days at the garage anyway, because he can't sit still. Plays with the grandchildren, makes me coffee in the morning, brings me flowers every Friday, after almost 40 years together. He still brings me flowers. And I retired too. After years of working, I can finally rest, take care of the house, the grandchildren, the garden, the simple things I never had time to appreciate. But most importantly, I finally have peace. Real peace. The peace that comes from having faced the worst and survived. The peace of having chosen forgiveness instead of bitterness. Love instead of hate. I think a lot about everything that happened, about that 23-year-old girl who showed up pregnant without understanding how, about the judgment, about the pain, about the difficult years. And I won't lie saying it was worth it because it wasn't. No one should go through what I went through. No one should be assaulted. No one should carry alone the weight of a violence they didn't cause. But I survived. And I didn't just survive. I lived. I built a life, a family, a story that's mine, that no one can take from me. There were moments I wanted to give up. There were nights I cried until I had no more tears. There were days I woke up not wanting to get out of bed. But I got up every single day. I got up for me, for my children, for the woman I wanted to be, for the life I wanted to have. And today, when I look back, I see that each scar taught me something. Each tear strengthened me. Each judgment made me more resilient. Luke asked me once if I regretted having him, if I wished that night had never happened. And I told him the truth. I wish the assault had never happened. I wish I had been spared that pain. But never, not for a second, do I regret having him, because he's the best thing that came out of all that. He's the light that was born from darkness. And that's the thing about life. Life isn't fair. Bad things happen to good people, people who don't deserve it, people who did everything right and were still punished. But we have choices. We choose how to react, how to move forward, whether we're going to let the pain destroy us or transform us. I chose to be transformed, chose to use my pain to be more empathetic, stronger, more compassionate. There were many women over the years who came to me. Women who went through similar things, assault, unwanted pregnancy, judgment. And they came because they knew I understood, that I wouldn't judge, that I would embrace them. And I embraced as many as I could, listened to stories, held hands, cried together, gave advice when asked, gave comfort when needed, because if my suffering can serve to help someone, then it wasn't completely in vain. If my story can make a woman feel less alone, then it was worth telling. And that's why I'm telling it today, for the first time publicly, after 41 years keeping the details, the complete truth. Because there are women watching this now who are going through something similar, who were assaulted and no one believed them, who showed up pregnant and were judged, who carry the shame of something they didn't cause. And I want them to know. I want them to hear from someone who went through this. It's not your fault. It never was. It never will be. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. It doesn't matter where you were. It doesn't matter if you drank, if you were alone with him, if you didn't scream loud enough. It's not your fault. The fault is always, always with whoever assaulted, whoever violated, whoever hurt. And if people don't believe you, if your family doubts, if the whole town judges you, you still deserve to be heard, deserve to be believed, deserve justice. I didn't have legal justice. David was never arrested, never prosecuted, never legally paid for what he did. But he paid in other ways. Lost his family, lost respect, lost peace. And I won a family I chose, won a life I built, one peace I conquered. So if you're going through this now, if you're carrying this weight, I want to tell you, it will hurt. It will hurt a lot, but you will survive. And more than survive, you will live. You will find people who believe in you, who support you, who love you for who you are, not in spite of what happened to you. You'll have good days. Days where you forget the pain, days where you laugh, days where you look around and think, I made it, I got here, and you will forgive. Not because whoever hurt you deserves it, but because you deserve it. You deserve to live without carrying anger, without carrying hate, without carrying the weight of something that wasn't your fault. Forgiving isn't forgetting, isn't saying everything's okay. It's simply letting go so you can move forward, so you can be free. It took me 25 years to learn this, 25 years carrying anger. I hope you don't take that long. I hope you find that peace sooner than I found it. And for you who are watching and have never been through this, I also have a message. Believe women. When a woman tells you she was assaulted, believe her. Don't ask what she was wearing. Don't ask if she drank. Don't ask why she didn't scream. Just believe, support, embrace. Because the most painful thing that happened to me wasn't the assault itself. It was what came after. It was not being believed. It was being judged. It was carrying alone something that should have been carried by whoever caused it. If someone had believed me at that time, if someone had supported me without judging, maybe my story would be different. Maybe my pain would be less. Be that someone for whoever needs it. Be the person who believes, who supports, who doesn't judge. And if you know someone who went through this, don't treat her as a victim. Don't treat her as pitiful. Don't treat her as broken. Treat her as a survivor, because that's what she is. A warrior, a fighter, someone who faced hell and came out the other side. There's one thing I never told anyone. Not Joseph, not Luke, not Dr. Christine. But I'm going to tell it now because I think it needs to be said. There was a day, when Luke was about 3 months old, that I almost gave up on everything, on life, on fighting, on continuing. I was alone at home. My mother had gone out. Luke was sleeping, and I looked at that little baby there, so tiny, so fragile, completely depending on me. And I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to raise him alone? How am I going to give him a good life if I can't even have a good life for myself? I thought about bad things that day, things I won't detail here. But I thought about them, seriously thought about them. And then Luke woke up, started crying, that cry of hunger, and I went to him, picked him up, started nursing, and he stopped crying immediately. He just looked at me with those little eyes, holding my finger with his tiny hand, trusting me completely. And I realized that if I gave up, he would give up too. That if I didn't fight, who would fight for him? That I was all he had, and he was all I had. So I didn't give up that day, or the days that came after. Even when it was difficult, even when it seemed impossible, I didn't give up. I'm telling this because I know there's someone watching now who's in that place, that dark place where it seems there's no way out, where it seems it would be easier to give up than to continue. And I want to tell you, don't give up. Please don't give up. I know it's hard. I know it seems like it won't get better, but it will. I promise it will. It might be tomorrow. It might not be next month. It might take years, but it will get better. And when it gets better, you'll look back and you'll be grateful you stayed, that you fought, that you survived. Because today, 41 years after that day, I almost gave up. I have a beautiful life. I have wonderful children, grandchildren, a husband who loves me, a house full of love and laughter. And none of this would exist if I had given up that day. None of it. So hang on. Just one more day, and then one more, and then one more. Until the good days start appearing, and they will appear. I promise. Another thing I want to say to the men watching, to the fathers, to the brothers, to the friends, be like Joseph. Be the man who doesn't run when the situation is difficult, who doesn't judge, who doesn't abandon, who stays, who loves, who supports. Joseph wasn't perfect. No human being is. We had fights, disagreements, difficult moments, but he stayed. He always stayed, and it made all the difference. He proved that a father isn't who generates, it's who raises, who is present, who chooses every day to be present. And for the Mrs. Thompsons of the world, for the mothers who protect their children even when they do horrible things, you're not helping, you're being accomplices. When you protect your son from facing the consequences of his actions, you're not being a good mother, you're creating a monster. You're allowing him to hurt other people, other families. If Mrs. Thompson had made David take responsibility at that time, if she had forced him to do the right thing, maybe the story would be different. Maybe I wouldn't have suffered so much. Maybe Luke would have had a father from the beginning. So don't be accomplices. Be real mothers, mothers who teach responsibility, who teach that actions have consequences, that mistakes need to be corrected. And to finish, I want to talk about one last thing. Gossip, judgment, how we treat people. The entire town judged me, called me a liar, a slut, every name, without knowing the truth, without really knowing me, based only on appearances, on assumptions. And that almost destroyed me, almost killed me, literally. So before you judge someone, before you spread gossip, before you point fingers, stop. Think. Do you know the whole story? Do you know the truth? Or are you just repeating what you heard? Because your words have power. They can destroy lives, can take people to rock bottom, can cause irreparable damage. So use your words carefully. Use them to build, to support, to love, not to destroy. And if you were the person who spread gossip, who judged, who pointed fingers and now discovered you were wrong, apologize. It's never too late to do the right thing. There were some people in town who, years later, came to me, asked for forgiveness, said they had been unfair, that they had judged without knowing. And I forgave them all, because holding grudges doesn't help anyone, it only poisons you. Today, when I walk down the street, people greet me with respect, not with pity, not with judgment, with respect, because I proved I'm strong, that I'm worthy, that I'm more than the worst moment of my life. And you are too. You who are watching, you who went through something similar, you who are carrying shame, you who are carrying guilt that isn't yours. You are more, so much more. You are strong, you are a warrior, you are a survivor, and your story doesn't end with trauma, doesn't end with pain. It continues, and you will write the next chapters, chapters of overcoming, of love, of full life. I wrote mine 41 years of chapters after that horrible night. 41 years of struggles, of victories, of love, of family, of life. And look where I am today, happy, fulfilled, at peace. You will get here too. You can believe it. Just don't give up. Never give up. My story started with a lie. The lie that I had sex of my own free will, the cruelest gossip they invented about me. But it ends with the truth that I survived, that I won, that I'm stronger than anything they tried to do to me. And this is my story. The story of the girl who showed up pregnant without ever having dated. The story of the woman who was judged, rejected, hurt, but who got up, who fought, who won. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the Grandma's Diary, hit that like button, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support means everything to me and helps me keep sharing these important stories with all of you. Thank you for listening to me, for hearing my truth, for giving me this space to finally tell everything without fear, without shame, because this story is no longer a secret, it's no longer a source of shame. It's a testimony. A testimony that it's possible to survive, it's possible to overcome, it's possible to be happy after trauma. And if I could do it, you can too. Luke is here with me today while I record this. He wanted to be here, wanted to support me. And when I finish, he'll hug me and say what he always says. Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom. Thank you for giving me life, for fighting for me. And I'll say what I always say. Thank you for being the light in my darkness, for being the reason I continued, for making everything worthwhile. Joseph is also here holding my hand, as he's always held it these almost 40 years. He's my partner, my companion, my love, and I'm grateful every day for having found him, for him having chosen me, for him having chosen us. Emma and Michael will watch this and will cry because they know the story, but have never heard it like this, so detailed, so raw. And they'll understand even more why I was always such a protective mother, why I always valued family so much, why I always taught them to be good people. My grandchildren will watch this one day when they're older and will know their grandmother's story. We'll know where they came from. We'll know that resilience runs in their veins, that strength is part of their inheritance. And maybe, just maybe, their story will be easier because of it, because I fought, because I broke cycles, because I refused to let trauma define our entire family. So this is my last message to you, to whoever is watching. Whatever you're going through, whatever trauma you're carrying, whatever judgment you're facing, you will survive, you will overcome, you will be happy. It may not seem like it now, it may seem impossible, but it's true. I'm living proof of that. And if you need a sign not to give up, this is it. This right here, my story, my life, my victory. Don't give up, please don't give up. The world needs you, your family needs you, and you deserve to see the good days that are still to come. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And remember, you're not alone. You never were and never will be. We survived together. This is Rose's story, the girl who showed up pregnant without ever having dated, the woman who survived, the grandmother who today lives happily. And it can be your story too, of survival, of overcoming, of happiness. Believe it.